Peru's new president, Pedro Castillo, has been sworn in the capital, Lima. These are live pictures from the Peruvian Congress. Castillo's swearing in follows weeks of uncertainty after a disputed election result. Castillo took a surprise first place in the first round of the presidential election in April. Then in June, Castillo defeated Keiko Fujimori by just 44,000 votes in the runoff. She alleged irregularities, but the electoral body rejected her complaints. Castillo's left-wing party wants to rewrite the constitution and to address inequality. Several foreign leaders are in Lima for the inauguration. OK, so as we say, live pictures there from the Peruvian Congress in Lima. As we continue watching these pictures, let's bring in Mariana Sanchez, who is standing by for us, also in Lima. And Mariana, this is a big moment for Pedro Castillo after a tricky few weeks.
After a tricky few weeks, but there's a lot of history behind his persona, his figure taking over the government, Kim, because today marks the 200th anniversary of the independence from the colonialists, the Spanish colonialists in Peru. And throughout the republic, the elites have ruled throughout the republic. And now for the first time, it is a farmer, a person that comes from one of the poorest, the third poorest district in Peru, who is taking over the presidency. We can see how humble his family is. They have come with their hats. His parents are people who don't know how to read and write. His wife is a teacher like Pedro Castillo, and he has won this presidency because of the clamor of the demands of millions and millions of Peruvians who want change, millions of Peruvians who feel left behind and who have voted for change. The big question will be, will he be able to deliver on those promises of change, especially now that he has really begun with the left foot here in Congress, where he is right now taking his oath. He has promised that he will change the Constitution, something that he will not be able to do without Congress. And he has lost this first battle in Congress as he was unable to form a coalition that will favor him with people from either the party he represents or that are parties that are allies with the party he represents. It is an all-opposition leadership in Congress that will not accept and have said before that they will not accept a change in the Constitution. So there's not only a tough road ahead, I think there are going to be roadblocks for this new president to be able to govern, Kim.
Mariana, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Pedro Castillo is now kind of seen as the outsider, but it was his opponent, Keiko Fujimori's father, back in 1990. He was then seen as the outsider. Now Keiko is the insider, and Castillo is the, as we say, former teacher, son of peasant farmers. He's the one who's coming in from the outside, promising sweeping reforms. We're now just going to listen in as he addresses the nation.
Republics of Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Ecuador, and His Majesty the King of Spain, Vice Presidents and Chancellors, people from all those present, ladies and gentlemen, that are the Republic of Peru. I start by greeting my brothers, the ancestors of this country, my brothers, the teachers, and from the Quechua, the Aymaras, the Aguajún, my brothers Chihuinos, and brothers, the ancestors of Peru. I use the symbolic day of the 200th century, 200th years of the independence of Peru. I'm very proud to be here today. But despite the fact that we commemorate such a symbolic date, our history comes from long before that. We have 5,000 years of civilization in our land. Important states such as the Huari were created, and during 4 millennium and a half, our ancestors found the way to resolve problems and to live in harmony with the riches provided by the earth, until they came, the people from Castilla, using a moment of disunion to create the state, and then took over a great part of the central Andes, the destruction of the Incas, and it was then, with the foundation of the Republic, that the different people that still exist today came into being. 3 centuries, the Kingdom of Spain allowed the riches to be stolen, together with the cooperation of many of us. This injustice ended in many of the indigenous people being exterminated. 40 years later, the independence of the Kingdom of Spain in 1821 didn't achieve a better living for the Peruvians, and we were second citizens. With time, the previous people of Peru, then came China and Japan, who helped us to become richer, but it wasn't without pain. And in the 20th century, in the Amazon, many people worked in the as slaves and violence. In previous years, just as the 70s, many peasants and uncountable Peruvians continued living as slaves. Until all adults could express their vote and have their rights, which in 1992 was frustrated by the coup, and until today, some of the regulations are still in force. But thanks to the popular vote, we are here today, and this time a government for the people is here to rule for the people and by the people. And it's the first time that our country shall be governed by a peasant, a person who, like many of the Peruvians, is from the suppressed classes. It's the first time that a popular party formed in the interior of the country are here democratically. And that a teacher, more specifically a country teacher, is chosen to be the constitutional president of the Republic. And this is a great honor for me. I want you to know that that I am also a son of this country, and due to the sweat of my ancestors, I'm here. And due to the opportunity my parents gave me, I too have resisted. My life is suffering the cold of the country in the early morning, and the history of Peru that for so long has been silenced is also my history. I was a child who studied in a school in the countryside, and today I am here. In order that this history, I want you to know that you have my word. I will not defraud you, and we will not defraud you. Our political lines is the fight against the pandemic of COVID-19, maintain health and life. Our first big challenge is to fight the COVID-19, which is hitting our country hard. And I don't want to forget on this occasion all the many Peruvians who are no longer with us, and that we miss them. And in honor of their memory, this will be a priority. The virus has not finished, but I am absolutely sure that we will move forward and we will construct, listening to the people and putting the Peruvians first. We have to also ensure that all of the people are vaccinated in as little time as possible. The health in our country will be something fundamental, a fundamental right which the government will ensure, and it will be the first priority of the government. We will create a universal system of health which will be decentralized, allowing first medical care in order to grant health to the country. And we will ensure that 5,000 health centers are created so that no family in Peru will not have medical cover. During the term of my mandate, this will be regional, in which there will be children hospitals, maternal hospitals, tropical medicine, and local health. In order to achieve that all of the Peruvians have this health service, we have to work throughout all levels of the government. For this, I call on the regional government leaders to indicate where these hospitals will be built. And we will start, furthermore, with the construction of the hospital in San Juan de Urigay. We have to end the centralizing of these and people having to come to Lima for medical treatment. It will be run by the men and women who
Pedro
have
Castillo
always been
addressing Congress, having been sworn in. He started by thanking his fellow teachers. He, of course, was a country teacher himself. Made note of the symbolism of the day, 200 years since the independence of Peru. Said it was a government, or would be a government, to rule the people by the people. He said this is the first time the government has been led by a peasant. Really made a lot about his background, being a man of the people, and said that the fight against the pandemic would be his first big challenge. Let's bring in Mariana Sanchez, our correspondent, who is joining us now live from Lima. Mariana, what stood out to you from what Pedro Castillo had to say in his maiden speech?
Well, so far, Kim, as he's still speaking, it's very interesting. He had the very beginning of his speech talking about how Peruvians for centuries have been left behind, especially the peasants, the farmer peasants of Peru. Interestingly, that he has talked about Spain and how today is the anniversary of the bicentennial anniversary of the independence from the colonialists, from Spanish colonialists. And just yesterday, he was having a meeting with the King of Spain, King Felipe. So it's very interesting, very symbolic, if you will, that he's the King of Spain has come to salute this new president who comes from those who were left behind for centuries in the country. That, I think, is very important for Castillo, and also very important for many Peruvians who see that it could be their chance for someone that comes from one of the poorest districts in the country and knows the hurdles that people have to have every single day to eat. Mainly know and understand that he will not forget them. Another thing I think that's very important, and he was just mentioning this, is that his priority in his government will be the pandemic. It's very interesting that he mentions this now, because he hasn't mentioned this throughout the campaign and in the past few weeks since we were waiting for the electoral commission to decide who had won the presidency. Now, he has spoken about the pandemic and that it will be the priority in his government. It is very important because he has not only said that the priority number one, number two, number three has to be the pandemic, as a latest opinion poll says about what Peruvians want from this new president, and 75% of Peruvians say it is health. He has said also that he will take a lot of care about the health issues, because when we started the pandemic, as everyone else in the world, the Peruvians found out that there were, for 33 million Peruvians, only 140 ICU beds for the whole country. So that is just a show of how fragile is the healthcare system, and how important it is for the forgotten, for the poorest people of Peru, to have good healthcare. So this I think are very two important points that he has said at the beginning of his speech.
Mariana, we should remind our viewers that Pedro Castillo won the election by a razor-thin margin. So there's obviously a lot of people who haven't bought into his agenda. Just remind our viewers of the social and the economic context in Peru that brought Castillo to power, a man with no previous government experience.
That's right. No previous government experience, and mainly nearly unknown to most Peruvians, although he had been a member of a center-right-wing party a few years ago, the leader of a national teacher strike 4 years ago. He was mainly unknown to everyone. So how was it possible that he has won the presidency? It is because he went from one town to another, in a small little towns in rural, remote areas of Peru, telling people that he wanted to bring change and that he wanted to bring, as he said in his motto, no more poor Peruvians in a rich country. So he has gone, and that message has been very important and has made people who didn't know anything about him to vote for him, because also there was a huge anti-corruption vote in the country. More than 50% of Peruvians did not want to vote for Keiko Fujimori, his opponent, his rival in this presidency. She had lost 2 times for the same reasons, with nearly the same margin of votes, 42,000 votes in the last election and 44,000 votes in this election. So there was a combination of factors that made Pedro Castillo win. First, because Keiko Fujimori is highly unliked in among many in the country, and then because Castillo had this message of change, of a new constitution, which he probably won't be able to do or deliver. But that's what people think. People think that if the constitution is changed, their lives will change. That laws will help them have a better prospect of a future. So this is how Pedro Castillo, coming from being nearly unknown, has won the presidency. Kim.
All right, thank you very much for that, Mariana Sanchez. They're live for us in Lima.